Today on the Dennis Michael Lynch Show, President Trump addresses the nation and lays out a program that is hard to deny, especially when you look at today's inflation numbers. Plus, Dan Bongino leaving the FBI, new arrests in Australia, and what's actually happening in Venezuela. We've got a bunch of stuff here for you today, and it's all unfiltered.
Dennis Michael Lynch gives you his word, and he will never let you down. He will always fight for America.
The only one who really puts his money where his mouth is Dennis Michael Lynch.
Hello, I'm Dennis Michael Lynch, and I thank you for joining me today. We've got a jam-packed show for you. We're going to get right into it. No delays here at all. The only thing I'm going to ask you is, please, if you're on Facebook, hit the share button. And if you're on X, hit the retweet button. One of the other things I want to let you know is starting in the beginning of the year, we are going to be going live on more platforms. And we're also going to have a lot of special programs just for Team DML members. So that's important stuff there for you. And we're going to make a nice announcement tomorrow about something with Team DML on tomorrow's show. With that said, Dan Bongino yesterday made an announcement that he is going to be leaving the FBI after a little less than 1 year. In January, he says he's leaving, and speculation is that he will return to his podcast. So the question becomes, why is Dan Bongino leaving a job that he said he wanted to participate in because he wanted to help shape the restructuring of Washington, D.C.? He wanted to play his role in pushing out the swamp and holding people accountable. Well, I mean, I can only speculate. And I don't have any inside information from Dan or anybody who is friends with him. I don't suspect Dan's going to reveal much of this stuff anyway. So I want to go over this quick and real quick, only because it is, again, my opinion and speculation. None of it is grounded in fact. Dan Bongino has always been a guy who gets very fired up and passionate, a little bit about like myself, about the things that really bog him down in terms of when he looks at Washington, D.C. and the nation and says, why can't we get to a better place? Now, I don't know if people know this or not, but Dan Bongino ran for Congress 3 times. He's lost all 3 times. He ran in Maryland and he ran in Florida. Now, to that degree, I think if he would have run today, because his popularity is far different in terms of being much better than it was yesterday, I think he would probably win whatever district he's running in, assuming it's a conservative district. I don't think Jesus could run in a blue district and win. But that said, if you look at Dan Bongino, where he can go from here, there is a wide open opportunity to become the governor of Florida. I have told this to you already. I do not hit the requirement. You have to be a full-time resident in Florida for 7 years in order to run for the governor seat. And I've been here when the election comes. I will have been here 6 years, so I missed it by a year. But Dan's been in Florida full-time longer than I have. And when you look at the people who are so far declared, there's really nobody that has a real chance to win this in a runaway sort of fashion, although everybody says Byron Donalds is poised to win. But people don't want Byron Donalds. I know, for one, I don't want him. I'm not going to go deep into why he's not the right guy, not today anyway. But Ron DeSantis has not supported anybody yet. Now, we have a guy named Jay Collins here who... you could make the argument that DeSantis will pick him as being the person to carry the torch. However, DeSantis hasn't come out and shown that he would support Jay Collins. Jay Collins hasn't announced yet. Jay Collins is basically part of, the existing Florida system that there is in now with government. And so I think if Bongino were to look at this and say, okay, I really got to get past Byron Donalds, the only issue he has is that President Trump has come out in support of Byron Donalds. But that wouldn't preclude Dan from being able to run for governor. If Dan Bongino was to run for governor of Florida, he would win. Hands down. Hands down. And I would personally love to see that happen, because I know that my state would continue in the way that it has been for the past 8 years under DeSantis. And there's a part of me that thinks it's going through his mind because he's got that political bug inside him. He tried 3 times, failed each one. And I think he knows he could win this. The other thing is that when Dan Bongino ran for Congress the first 3 times, he wasn't a rich man. Today, he's extremely wealthy. I don't know if you know this or not, but in addition to making a great deal of money on his podcast, he is also a major shareholder in Rumble. So his stock value there alone, depending on how the stock is doing on a particular day, is worth tens of millions of dollars. And when I say tens, I'm not talking about 20, 30. It's more like 50 million and above. And if the stock goes up, well, then it's even more significant. Dan has plenty of money to put behind his own run for governor, and he would be highly competitive day one. No questions asked. So when you look at the options for him, there's that. And then, of course, there's the option of returning to podcasting. And I think Dan loves podcasting. I think he loves having the light shined on him. It's one of the reasons why I also think he's leaving the FBI. And this is not a critique on my end. Look, I love having the light and the camera shined on me too. I think I have a lot to say, and I think it has a lot of value to my listeners. And Dan feels the same way. And Dan's numbers before he left were astronomical. I mean, again, because he is an owner of Rumble, he gets to position himself at the best hour and on the homepage. But I mean, at the end of the day, if you got a crappy show, people aren't going to listen. He was getting incredible numbers, well over 100,000 people watching him on a live stream. And I think when he looks at the podcasting world right now, sort of like I did 3 months ago, although I am far behind where he is in terms of entering back in the space. I mean, he says, hey, I was in the top 5 to begin with. Now I'm not in this game. And look who's in the top. I got Ben Shapiro, who does nothing but champion for Israel. I got Tucker Carlson, who does nothing but champion against Israel. I got Megyn Kelly, who is the furthest thing from a conservative. I mean, Nancy Pelosi's more conservative than Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly just knows how to fake it. And then I got Candace Owens, who is just at this point so discredited. You know, these are the top 4. My goodness, I could go back in and I will be number 1 with no close number 2. So I think from an egotistical standpoint, and again, this is from a good ego. It's like Trump's ego, right? So you want to do good for the country and you want everybody to know you did, your part. So from an egotistical standpoint, from an opportunity standpoint, from making money standpoint, I think Dan sees the opportunity there. I think the other thing too, and this is one thing I scratched my head on when he first said he was going to do this, he's got young kids. He's got 2 young girls at home. And, when you're in Washington, D.C., the majority of the year, and you're not seeing your kids, I mean, Dan's kids are never going to be young again. And I understand and I appreciate, and I'm actually even thankful for his attempt to be an influence and be a figure that was going to make the swamp go away and hold people accountable. But, we only got one lifetime. And the one thing that I would be thankful to God if he took me in the next 30 seconds, God forbid, please don't, is the first thing I would say to him is thank you for giving me so much time with my children. I got to watch them grow up. I get to work with them. It's the best part of my day. It's the best part of my life. All my friends say it to me all the time. They're like, I wish I had what you had. And Dan being disconnected from his family is a rough one. To add it all together, the biggest part of this, with the things that I just told you put to the back burner, I think when he says, I could be governor, I could be number 1 podcaster, I could be number 1 dad, and I'm not doing any of that because I wanted to make America number one again. Well, when you put your country in front of those other things, that's very admirable. But when you're there and you can't get things done, and now you're actually seeing the nuances of how bad things are, I hate to say this because, last night I was walking and I was listening back to the show, and I only listened to half of it. And I said, man, is this show lately has been really negative. And I got to try to spin something positive. And I always used to listen to Rush Limbaugh. And the one thing about Rush Limbaugh that I really enjoyed was, although he always pointed out what the problems were in the United States, and not that he came up with solutions, but he always left you believing that tomorrow could be brighter than it was today. And I said, I need to get back to more of that because I believe in it. I believe that America is not done. I believe America still could have its best days ahead. And I know that's hard for you to believe, especially knowing that my audience is mostly 55 and up. And, we know what life was like before cell phones. We know what it was like before cable television and all this social media platform garbage. We know what it was like when the greatest thing in your life was, going outside and playing pickup basketball with your friends, or going outside and playing tag with your girlfriends, and, having a big wheel, and just simplicity sort of things that made the world and made America so damn special. And now that's all been stripped away. And, my feeling is that with the right leadership and the right mindset, we can get it back. And one of the things you got to do to get it back is you got to get rid of the corruption. You got to bring honesty back into the fold. And I think that's what Dan was looking to do, whether it was the Epstein files or holding people accountable in the Biden and the Obama administrations, maybe cutting back on some of the fraud that we've seen take place, going after people like the Muslim Brotherhood. I think Dan had dreams of what should be and could be, and then he recognized it can't be. And I don't know, only Dan can answer this. And I don't know if he ever will answer it for you in the next 3 years. I don't think he would do that to Trump, to be quite honest. But if he had a level of honesty that exceeded concerns of talking negatively about people he admires like Trump, I think he would tell you that in order to fix the FBI, the DOJ, to get rid of the deep state, to get the United States and the White House and the Congress working again in the right way, that it would take such amazing, selfless leadership in almost every position. And that's not what is in place right now. And I think he recognizes that things can't be fixed the way they are now. Yeah, you could patch a couple of problems, but to reverse it, no way. No way at all. And then on top of that, again, I want to go back. This sounds horrible in terms of the words if you were reading this, but you could hear it in my voice. From a pure egotistical standpoint, when you like having the light shined on you and you want to play hero and you want to play smartest guy in the room and the voice that should be listened to, and again, I'm not pointing negativity at Dan. I consider myself that same sort of person. Dan was number 2 at FBI. And I think that Dan needs to be number 1 in whatever he does. He needs to be the guy who is the lead pin. And being second, not only is he left to have to question what could be and what would be if he were in charge, not only does he have to question what he's being asked to do and having to answer to people, I think he's looked at what has happened with the FBI. Yes, it has stopped a terror attack in L.A. Yes, it's done some other nice work, but ultimately it has fallen short of what the expectations were from the American people to have Kash Patel and Dan Bongino in place. And I think what happened is, I think in the summer, Dan Bongino was looking up and saying, man, I didn't think this was what did I sign up for? And said, let me try to get as close to 1 year as I can. And then now with the turn of the calendar, this is the time of when people sort of leave after year 1. And I respect his decision, although it does hurt inside knowing that a good man tried his best and his best wasn't good enough, because it's not a one-man job. And the same reason why Trump can't turn all things around by himself. And so that's a little discouraging. But at the same time is maybe Dan will be able to come back behind the microphone and shed light on things that none of us understand, including myself, because we're actually not in the arena behind the curtain that nobody's allowed to see. Whether or not he ever shares that sort of thing is completely up to him. Somebody did ask me yesterday, how do you think the reaction will be when he comes back? Do you think people will go back and listen to his show, or are they going to be disgusted because he didn't get done the things he promised? I think he's going to come back and be bigger than ever because, number one, people love drama. They're going to tune in to see what it is he has to say and see if he reveals or says something bad about people that everybody said, oh, I knew it. This is why Candace Owens is number one. She's number one because people love drama. People are generally bored, and they want to believe that there's some boogeyman under the covers that is creating all this mishap, and yet there's not. There's no boogeyman. What it really comes down to is that people are self-centered. They care only about themselves. They want to make a ton of money. They want power, and ultimately the American people are just pawns in a chess game. And that's why they tune into the Candace Owens. That's why they tune in to other people, even Tucker Carlson at this point, who are going to tell you everything's a conspiracy theory. Everything is, nothing is as it seems. And this is why it is. So Dan is going to come back, and he's going to probably have a record-breaking first show. Whether people stick around or not is really going to be dependent on whether or not they believe Dan is given 100%. In terms of the information that he can, or if he's holding things back. If you're holding things back and people don't feel as if you're being authentic, then he'll never recover to where he was. But I believe Dan will probably rise to the top, although I say in all politeness and gamemanship, he better watch, because within a year, I'm going to be right on his buttocks. That said, what I would have wished that we had somebody like Dan Bongino working the Brown University case. I mean, here we are, day 6, day 7. We're not getting any closer. Whoever it is that pulled the trigger on that school, whoever killed those 2 students, especially the VP of the Republican Club, they're going to get away with this damn thing. They're going to get away with it because they have already covered over everything they needed to cover over. They've flown, fled, whatever it is that you want to call it. They're either out of the country, out of the state, and they've moved on. And because you have the Keystone Cops, you have a DEI structure in place between the immigrant cop from Colombia with the drug kingpin relative, who does his commentary half in Spanish. Nobody can understand what the hell he's talking about. Doesn't even have the respect to tell people, hey, here's what I just said in Spanish. Number 2 is you've got this absolutely ass-backwards white female liberal president of that university who is just absolutely clueless and more focused in on queer studies than she is on protecting students. Then you got the mayor, who, I don't know, he's a Tinkerbell. And then you got the AG, who thinks he's the smartest guy on planet Earth, and you could just see through him. He's just such a BS artist. It's disgusting. I'm not even chiming in anymore to watch the press conferences. I'll look at the little clips when they finally say that they can't catch the guy. It's a very sad day in Providence. It really is. And if I were the father of Ella Cook, I would be beside myself. In fact, I would want police watching me so I didn't make a mistake. That said, speaking of law enforcement and the lack thereof, I'm going to turn your attention. We're going to play a video right now from the U.S. State Attorney. I believe this is in Boston, Massachusetts. I did my morning video on this, and I do ask if you're on Facebook or Twitter. I put it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Those are our now 4 channels, and we are growing them fast. If on Instagram, you want to find me on Instagram, I post there about twice a day with video clips. Just search for Dennis Michael Lynch. You'll find me. It's a blue check mark. On X, if you're not following me on X, just go to X and look up Trust DML. That's my handle, Trust DML, or Dennis Michael Lynch. That's also a verified account. And we're growing quickly on there. We're doubling our numbers. But on Facebook this morning, I put up this story about 2 Haitians. And the thing is this. We know we are riddled with fraud in this country. We're getting our asses kicked. You and I are working hard. We're trying to get ahead. We're trying to make something real for our families. We live by the laws. We don't break the rules. Yeah, sure, maybe you roll through a stop sign, but at the end of the day, you're a good human being. You believe in the fabric of America, that we all have to be honest and do our part. You don't steal from people, and if you do, you certainly don't steal from the poor. And this story takes us to two Haitians who have been ripping off the EBT SNAP program, food stamps, stealing money and lining their pockets. One of these guys is a recent immigrant from Haiti. Play the video, Ryan.
We are announcing federal charges against two men, Antonio Bonner and Saul Elisme, for large-scale SNAP benefit trafficking, a scheme that turned a program designed to feed families into a multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise. SNAP benefits are also known as food stamps. The defendants are charged with one count of food stamp fraud. As alleged in the charging documents, these men abused one of the government's most critical safety net programs for their own financial gain. This is taxpayer money meant to keep people from going hungry. These defendants decided to take it for themselves. These defendants exchanged SNAP benefits for cash, which they pocketed. Bonner, a naturalized U.S. citizen from Haiti, owned the Jesuela Variety Store. Elisme, a lawful permanent resident also from Haiti, owned the Saul Mache Mixe store. These two businesses were co-located within a single storefront in Boston. To be certain, these were not supermarkets. They were not full-service groceries. It would be a huge stretch to even call them convenience stores. In fact, the only thing convenient about these stores was how easy it was to commit SNAP benefit fraud. To put this in perspective, the Jesuela Variety Store is less than 150 square feet in size, smaller than some bathrooms. The Saul Mache Mixe store was approximately 500 square feet in space. By contrast, a supermarket can be 20,000 to 60,000 square feet in size, have a dozen or more registers, and employ numerous employees. Both the Jesuela Variety and Saul Mache Mixe stores had one register, no carriages, no hand baskets, and very little food for sale. One legitimate supermarket in the same area as these stores redeems approximately $80,000 in SNAP benefits per month. Over the last 20 months, the Jesuela Variety Store was redeeming between 3 and 6 times that amount monthly, with nowhere near the space, inventory, customers, or infrastructure to support it. The Saul Mache Mixe store redeemed over $120,000 in SNAP benefits in the last 6 months. Simply put, there is no plausible way SNAP eligible food could have been purchased from these stores for this long. Yet, these two stores are alleged to have illicitly trafficked nearly $7 million in SNAP benefits.
Now, let me explain to you real quick how this works in case you don't understand. You say, wait a second, how are they able to do this? I'll go through this process very quickly. So, Ryan, come to this camera. So you are with your Visa card, right? Or your American, let's use American Express. So you got your American Express, or you got a debit card, even better. You walk into your local supermarket and you buy $200 worth of food. You've got your meats, you've got your apples, you've got your string beans, you've got your waters, you got everything you need. And you give that card, and it's $200. You give your Visa card or your American Express, and what happens? Boom, you've got $200 debited. It's either debited from your bank card, if that's what you're using, or if you're using American Express, well, American Express just paid the supermarket, and you will get a bill later on. We understand this. With EBT and SNAP, what winds up happening is the person who's got that welfare card, because that's what it is, they go in and they buy $200 worth of food. They give that card, and when they put that card in, what happens is that $200 is debited from the state. The state, just like American Express will wind up paying the merchant, the state pays the merchant. That money that the state has came from you, came from the taxpayers. So what was happening here is that you've got, when you want to talk about 150 square feet of a store, that is like, if you just took a square, I don't even know if you could do it. Ryan, go wide. Go on the wide camera. I just want to show what 150 square feet is. 150 square feet is probably what you see in front right now with the wide camera, maybe a little bit bigger. 10 by 15 is 150 square feet. So so I can see it right now. That is what you're talking about. So this guy had a store the size of where I'm sitting here in the set. You could go back, right? And he had a couple of little tiny fruits and vegetables. And he had meals that I guess he stole that were supposed to be shipped to charities to help starving children. And they were selling that. So what would happen is Mr. Black, Mrs. Smith, would walk into his store, if that's what you want to call it, give him the card, run it for $200 of food that was never grabbed, maybe like 2 little apples went into a bag. And what he did was he gave him the 2 little apples and then he gave him $100. So Mr. Black was using his Snap card as an ATM machine. So Mr. Black takes the $100, puts it in his pocket, he walks out. The state is given $200 to the Haitian, and so the Haitian makes the spread of the $100 that he paid out and the $200 that he's going to get. They were running $100,000 to $500,000 a month in comparison to the real grocer down the block who was doing $85,000. The point is, how did this go on for so long? How is it that the EBT regulators, the people, the officials who give and read the applications to do that to EBT, did nobody ever go and do an inspection? Come on. If you see that all of a sudden it's $100,000, $200,000, $500,000, and you're looking at what you're paying out compared to what it is that other stores are doing in the area, that's got to be a red flag. How long did it take $7 million for these guys to wind up getting caught? And oh, by the way, are we going to get the money back? This is the problem. Look, let's go over to Minnesota, right? The whole thing with the Somalis and what's happening there with Minnesota. Tens of millions of meals were never delivered, but were charged for. And so far, the DOJ has charged 78 people in this whole thing. One guy just got sentenced to 10 years to jail, but he had stolen $47 million. So what happens to that money? Are we recovering any of this? From what I've been able to ascertain so far, just in the one fraud program, because there were multiple fraud programs. We had the autism fraud. We had the free meal fraud. We had so many different frauds that they're now saying they think it's going to get to $2 billion. Well, in one of these fraud programs, I can't remember which one it is. I think it's the meals one. There was $300 million worth of fraud, to which we've only collected back $75 million. The American people are getting slaughtered on this, completely slaughtered. Meanwhile, what's happening to Governor Walz on this? Nothing. He's not going to be held accountable. He's not going to. The worst thing that happens to him is he loses an election. We have a video. I found this to be very, very interesting. This gentleman here is an advocate for people who really need those welfare programs, really need them. This guy is near in tears as he is testifying to the Democrats and the Republicans at the state capitol. Play.
Madam Chair, I'm Nathaniel M. Olson, a disability advocate for the state of Minnesota. I've heard the commissioners and the Department of Human Services, but the one thing that I'm freaking worried about is this freaking fraud that is happening over our state, where there's 600,000 disability people in the state of Minnesota that could suffer. And sadly, it's quite interesting that we have Governor Walz speaking in front of the state and saying that this fraud is nothing but the side. But my people are done suffering. We're done with this fraud. We're done with the Department of Human Services coming up here and saying, oh, we're going to figure this out. This has been too long. The administration knew that this fraud was coming. I've talked to families, parents, everyone have been reaching out to me and saying, oh, this is what is happening to my child. This is what is happening to my child. We're afraid. We need to put aside these differences, and we need to come together and put a stop to this fraud. Our governor is not doing anything to help us, but sit here and decide he wants to blame Donald J., the President of the United States, who has nothing to do with this. There is a time to hold our governor accountable, and I'm not seeing it. This fraud is outrageous. And I'm very scared for my little brother if he goes into ICS home. But right now he's home with my parents, and he's going to stay there because I'm going to keep fighting for these disability people, because none of them are right here, and I am their voice. It is time for us to say enough is enough. I'm done. And it makes me sad to see what's happening to our state. This was a great state. It was. But all of this fraud that is coming around here, all these excuses that is happening, needs to stop. Minnesota needs to become a great state again. Thank you, and thank you guys for your guys' hard work.
You know, you really feel for him because he's got a person in his family who really needs the services. And I mean, and as of right now, one of the things I did look up is that Minnesota is now, you know, trying to crack down on this as much as they possibly can. They're chasing the ambulance sort of thing, and they're trying to, you know, change the tires on a moving truck. I mean, it's very tough to do. They put a 2-year pause on new adult daycare licenses. So if you're an adult and you need daycare, you know, services, obviously you're very disabled, probably like his brother. I mean, now you got to go through crazy red tape because you can't find a place because they're trying to stop the fraud. You want to stop the fraud? You want to make Minnesota great again, like that young man just said, who I am very proud of, that he had the gumption and the fortitude, not only to get up there and fight back, but to say, stop blaming Donald J. Trump for this. He's not the one who did this. Here's how you stop the fraud in Minnesota. A, you vote out Democrats because Democrats are synonymous with fraud. The second thing you do is that you support the president of the United States in ridding of the Somalis, in ridding of the people who should not be in this country. You know, Donald Trump is going to start next month. His administration is going to start, and I know this is a low number, but at least it's a start, 200 to 300 immigrants who have been naturalized, who have been given their green card and their American citizenship. They are now going to start to be reviewed, and they will be denaturalized. They will be sent back to wherever it is that they came from if it is found out that they fraudulently used false information on their applications to get here. In some cases, if they have perpetuated massive fraud against the United States of America, they can also lose their naturalization. Now, of course, I want this to start with Ilhan Omar and with Mamdani. That's number one and number two. Number three and number four should be those Haitians that we just told you about. And then we should put a telescope and just look for every single last Somali that's in the United States of America. Every single last Muslim that is in the United States of America proclaims their faith to Allah. We should be looking at them because there would be no absolute reason, no cure, no nothing that they were looking to solve or that they were looking to have solved for them, that they would want to come or need to come to the United States other than wanting to take it over from within. And, you know, I have been playing the crazy left on here. We did it for about a year and a half before I started to retire and then come back, and now we do it again. I am telling you, there's not going to be many shows that go through where I don't highlight the Muslims like I do the crazy left. There's going to be the freaking crazy Muslim segment. Here you go. Here's one. I'm going to take you to Washington, D.C. right now. National Guard. We just had 2 National Guard shot, one of them killed by an Afghani Muslim person who was brought here as a refugee unvetted. We are not vetting anybody. Well, now this video I'm going to show you, and this is for people who are only listening, you're going to hear at the very beginning, Allah Akbar. What you don't get to see is this guy is screaming that, and he's taunting at, and he's getting up in the faces of 3 National Guardsmen in Washington, D.C., and then he has the audacity to post it online. Give it a look, Rai.
Allahu Akbar! Allahumma salli alayka Rasulullah! I don't see you smiling anymore. You ain't smiling, huh? Huh? You ain't smiling shit.
I mean, how pathetic is this? Why do we need these people? We don't need these people. You know we don't need these people. I know we don't need these people. These people need to stop. They need to stop coming in here. Trump needs to do more. He needs to be more active on that. We're going to get to Trump in his speech last night in a second. But I want to cover something about Australia, how dangerous it is that these freaking Muslims, Islamics, they never stop. They never stop. They're like an army of termites. So in Australia, as you know, we just had that bloodbath take place with the 2 Muslims got up there and just started shooting the hell out of everybody. And it lasted for 15 minutes. And one of the things that you've got to ask when you come away from the, oh my God, all these poor people were killed, is you got to ask yourself, how the hell did that happen? Well, we have an account video. This is the first video I've seen of it so far, of a woman who was there that day who tried to take matters into her own hands because the cops would not. This is an interview a woman is giving to, I believe it is, a podcaster in Australia. Listen to what she has to say.
These police officers were hiding behind a car. I tried to grab one of their guns. The other one grabs and he says, no, I'm trying to grab for his gun. These men, these police officers, they know who I am, and I hope they're hearing this. You are weak. You could have saved so many more people's lives. They were just standing there, listening and watching this all happen, holding me back. 2 police officers. Where were the others? Not there. Nobody was there. Everyone, the public, helped. Nobody else. My little 3-year-old was saved by a pregnant woman who saw her crying and screaming, Mummy, Daddy. We were there. There was not. Do you know how long did it take for police to come? How long did it take?
It was just...
No one. Everyone was too scared.
Yeah.
I mean, how pathetic. How simply pathetic. If you sign up to be a police officer, I understand it's a very risky job, and I'm not going to pretend to understand what you go through on a daily basis. But you signed up for that. You get a salary, you'll get a pension, you get your time off, you get all your benefits. I'm sure Australia treats their cops a lot like we do here in the United States. You have 2 people who are killing people. You have no choice but to step up and go after them. And here's a point of where I don't think there's a better explanation of why the Second Amendment is so damn important. If we don't have the Second Amendment, we become walking ducks. That's it. You're just a duck waiting for somebody to blow you away. Can you imagine that? This woman trying to take a gun from a cop to make it so this way she can save people? Maybe had those cops been a little bit more brave, maybe if the politicians in Australia wouldn't be allowing the Muslim world to infiltrate Australia and take it over and change it from what was once a very robust, very white, very solid country now into what looks like one big, huge, giant prayer rug. Maybe the little girl we talked about, the 10-year-old girl. Ryan's going to play a video right now as B-roll. I'm going to talk over it. But you're now seeing Matilda. This is the first video of Matilda. Matilda is there with her family having a great time celebrating Hanukkah. She's there in the yellow. And right after this video was shot on Bondi Beach, she's there with her family having a great time. That little girl was killed dead. Killed dead by those two Muslim scumbags while the police just sat back and did nothing. This is an atrocity. This is an outright sin. And if anybody who allows this sort of thing to happen, the Tucker Carlsons of the world, the Candace Owenses of the world, this is why I get so upset with them. This is why I try to explain to them. I can give a rat's ass what their numbers are or how many downloads they have until it turns out to be that they are restructuring the thoughts of the American people. You really think that 10-year-old girl deserves to be in heaven right now instead of playing on a playground with a little sister? The anti-Semitic content that is all over, whether it's verbal, written, or otherwise, is pathetic. And it's all bought and paid for by the Islamic world. And people who don't understand that are freaking stupid. Absolutely stupid. That little girl now is gone. Now, here's the thing. We're going to play another video for you right now. Again, Ryan played as B-roll. I'm going to explain this to you. What happened in the last 24 hours is that police in Australia rammed a car and have a whole bunch of Muslims on the street that they are arresting. And the speculation is that these pieces of crap were planning another attack because Hanukkah is still going on. This is the Muslim world. You do not see any other group of people do this sort of thing. Not a single time will you ever be able to show me a video of where this consistently goes on. And I don't want to hear about how Gaza children are starving and Gaza children are getting maimed. They started it. Hamas, they voted Hamas in. Hamas started this, and Israel is going to protect itself so another 10-year-old like that doesn't need to die. You ask me, and I'll tell you. Dennis, if you were the president of the United States and Mexico or Canada came in and kept on trying to kill us every single time, what would you do? I'd wipe their asses off planet Earth. I wouldn't give a rat's ass. You'd get one warning. I'm going to tell you right now, if you're a family and you got children and you don't want to get eviscerated and you're in Mexico, you better freaking go to Latin America right now. I'm going to give you 3 days of travel because after that, I'm vaporizing your entire country. Canada, same thing. Go up. Santa needs some elves. Head up to the North Pole, and I am going to eviscerate that country. If you're going to screw with me, if you're going to kill my people, I'm not going to have my people sleep 24/7, one eye open. Not going to do it. And when the other countries believe that you are going to wipe them out once and for all, they will stop. They will stop. Now, as far as, the people who are going to come back, ALPAC, APAC, they're all... We allow everybody to lobby. If you're going to base your hatred on a country based on how much they lobby, well, then you've got to hate your own country because we've got big pharma lobbying. We've got big furniture lobbying. We've got big trees lobbying. I mean, there's not a freaking organization or industry in the United States of America that doesn't have a lobbyist. The amount of lobbying that goes on in this country is insane. And you know what? If you want to know who else is to blame for this, don't always look at the Democrats, all right? The reason why you have these big PACs in the United States where you're only allowed to give, I think it's $2,500 to a candidate, but a business or other places, they could give unlimited dollar amounts, making your vote and your donation pretty much moot, comes down to a guy named David Bossie, who was part of the Trump administration, by the way, the first go-around. David Bossie from Citizens United is the one who made the case to the Supreme Court that big businesses and special interest donors should be able to have unlimited amount of money to be able to give to candidates. So it is a Republican who did that to you. Lobbying is everywhere, and that should be eliminated 100%. And until we do that sort of thing, no, You're never going to get America made great again, ever. You're never going to get a guy like Dan Bongino who goes into the FBI with a good heart and a clear mind and painted in red, white, and blue. You're not going to have that guy stay for 4, 8, 10, 12 years because he's going to go in there and say, oh my God, I am trying to get a snowball through hell. It's not going to work. But you can't quit. You got to keep on fighting. You got to believe. You got to believe that we're going to be able to do this. I'm not giving up. Not giving up on my president either, because I'm starting to see that President Trump might be actually getting his mojo back. We're going to spend the last 15, 20 minutes now talking about last night's speech. President Trump, there are times when he is just downright brilliant. Last night was one of those times. Now, the speech itself, I thought was underwhelming. And the speech itself was given in almost fast forward mode. And as he was doing it, I said, I know what this guy's doing. I know what he's doing. Here's what Trump did. He led all of America through podcasters, piece of garbage human beings like Tucker Carlson. He let people like Tucker Carlson and everybody else believe that he was going to address the nation last night to tell you that the United States was going to war with Venezuela. And by doing that, he had every media network, every newspaper, every single last person tune in. So this way we could understand why we're going to war. Why would a guy who's trying to stop wars going to actually go to war with Venezuela? And don't take him out. You're going to say, oh, Dennis has got this bug up his ass for Tucker Carlson. No, I don't. I'm just calling it out for what it is. Ryan, play the video of Tucker Carlson just yesterday telling Judge Napolitano on his podcast that tonight, meaning last night, Trump's going to announce that we're going to war with Venezuela. Listen to this clown.
And so here's what I know so far, which is that members of Congress were briefed yesterday that a war is coming, and it'll be announced in the address to the nation tonight at 9 o'clock by the president.
Oh, so there you go. He's telling the world, because you know his clips are going to run crazy. Yeah, well, that's what's going to happen. The president's going to declare war with Venezuela. So because Trump trolled the entire internet, all his social media, all of traditional media, everybody tuned in. He had everybody's attention. And what did he do? He used that time to tell the United States of all the things that he has been doing. He got to reestablish the narrative because the Democrats have been saying time and again, everything sucks, everything's gloom and doom, blah, 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 blah. Now, in some cases, the Democrats have a point. And Trump last night went up there and, of course, just cherry picked the things that he wanted to talk about. But that's okay. That's okay. It doesn't solve the problem, but in terms of like health insurance, but what it does is it slows down that horrible narrative. And I will be the first one, if President Trump had me in front of him and said, all right, Dennis, I hear that every day on your show, you're calling out what it is I'm doing good, but you're also calling out what I'm doing bad. I want to improve. Nobody else hears you. None of this is going to be held against you. Tell me right now, what's my number one problem? I'd say, I'm not going to give you a policy, sir. I'm going to give you an attitude. Right now, you're shifted in thinking more about Qatar and Russia and Israel. You know, you did this whole worldwide tour. You went to Japan. Japan is meaningless to us right now. We've got problems in the United States. People are struggling. And even though it's not necessarily your doing, we had 4 years of Biden after how many years of COVID? And people are hurting. And finally, all of those years of high inflation and gouging and all this other stuff, it took a toll. And you know and I know you just can't turn it off. But people now are totally feeling they're in the 9th inning of this horrible, long inflation, price gouging, nothing's working well. And so they're going to look up and they're going to blame the person they see you. They don't see Joe Biden. And then when they see you off gallivanting around the world. So the optics aren't working well. You need to get back to you. You need to get back up and you need to feed people what you're doing, the information they need to know, that there's a plan. You know, people will give you the time you're asking for, but they got to see a plan. The plan cannot be, hey, by the way, I have Mandami here in my office and he's going to make New York City great again. Because you may be playing your 4D chess, which I don't believe, but even if you are, the average American doesn't see that. They just see you warming up to a socialist who's going to give everything away for free and put very bad people into places of power. They don't want that. They don't need that. They want to hear a plan. So you better come up with something real quick. You got to get your mojo back. You got to get your principles back. You got to get back into publishing what Make America Great Again looks like, smells like, listens like. Not this, I'm going to Japan to bring back a new golf club. That's what Trump did last night. And that's why he rushed through that speech, because he knew that sooner or later, the CNNs and all these other places in the world were going to be like, he's not saying anything about Venezuela. This is completely 100% him touting his freaking horn. And that's why he went through it so quick before they cut away. He wanted to get it all in. It was brilliant. He got all the attention he did. Now, the bad news about that is that the next time he calls for one of those things, that the media outlets are going to demand to see the speech prior to putting him on. But that's okay, because right now he's in the fight of his life. For the next 10 months, he's in the fight of his life. And so last night, he had a whole litany of things that he said were successes. We're going to play a real quick clip here because he says that one of the things he's going to do is house reform. And I want you to listen to what it is that he had to say real quick. Play it.
In the new year, I will announce some of the most aggressive housing reform plans in American history. A major factor in driving up housing costs was the colossal border invasion. We have never been invaded. This is the worst thing that, frankly, in my opinion, the worst thing that the Biden administration did to our country is the invasion at the border. The last administration and their allies in Congress brought in millions and millions of migrants and gave them taxpayer-funded housing while your rent and housing costs skyrocketed. Over 60% of growth in the rental market came from foreign migrants. At the same time, illegal aliens stole American jobs and flooded emergency rooms, getting free health care and education paid for by you, the American taxpayer. They also increased the cost of law enforcement by numbers so high that they are not even to be mentioned. For the first time in 50 years, we are now seeing reverse migration as migrants go back home, leaving more housing and more jobs for Americans.
I thought that that was the best clip to give you in terms of where you could see his cadence, hear his cadence, and the sort of tone of what he was trying to say. Now, he made a lot of claims last night. We're going to go through them for a couple of minutes here, but I do want to say to you that today sort of helps him from last night, because today some numbers came out, and those numbers reflect sort of what he was talking last night about how he's making things improve. There was an expectation set by the street today on Wall Street that there would be a 3% inflation rate. It has dropped to 2.6. That comes in much better. I mean, that is what, 20% less than what it is that the expectation was. So inflation right now is at 2.6%. It's going down. Gas prices are down. Also shows that wages are increasing and rent prices went down. So you could take a look at the chart right there, which is showing you where things are with inflation. The markets love this today. The NASDAQ's up so far at 500, and the Dow is up almost 400 as well. So after a bunch of bad days, we're starting to see a little recovery there. Now, in terms of getting into the nuances of what it is that Trump talked about, I want to have the last word on that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a clip here, because I think this clip, if you want to hear, if you say, DML, what'd you think last night? I'd say, what do I think? I think you got to watch this CNN clip, because this is the one time I think ever that I can say I agreed with both the guy on the right and the guy on the left. Here is Scott Jennings and Van Jones both giving their analysis of what it is you saw last night. Go.
I mean, you're very in touch with the president's base and what those voters want to hear. Do you think they heard that tonight?
Well, I think they wanted him to get back in the ring and start defining the contours of the election. I mean, I think he spent a lot of last year on foreign affairs to great success. But now we're moving into an election year, and the first line, I inherited a mess and I am fixing it, reminding people that we were in a deep hole, and that's why he got elected in the first place. He is going to have to ask for some forbearance from the American people. But you can tell he does have a story to tell here. Some of it is in the big, beautiful bill. That is the centerpiece of his domestic policy agenda. The tax cuts are good. And he does have villains here. The health insurance companies are a good villain. The Democrats being at an 18% approval rating, that's a good villain. And so when you're going into an election, I think it's got two jobs. One, sell what you're doing. But two, you got to post up against the alternative. The American people just rejected the alternative a year ago. And now he needs them to reject the alternative again. So I guess for Republicans, he's their salesman. And he has not been leading the sales fight on defining the contours of the election. But now he is. And I think you'll see a lot of Republicans saying, OK, the salesman in chief is back. He's our leader. Let's get behind him.
Van Jones?
I am not scared of that guy. I'm not. This is the first time I've seen a Donald Trump I'm not afraid of. He is exaggerating how bad things were. That's okay. He's exaggerating how good things are. That is great for us. That is fantastic. His big threat to Democrats is he was more in touch with ordinary people and everybody else. Yeah, the Democratic elite sitting up here talking big fancy words and, coming up with some new thing to be worried about every day. And he was right there with the everyday people. This is not how everyday people are experiencing this economy or the country. People are scared. They are worried. They see a bunch of things that are happening that seem completely out of control.
I agree with both men wholeheartedly. In Scott Jennings' analysis, I agree. How long have you heard me complain to you every day that Trump is out of touch? He's not, he's around the world. He's not doing things he needs to do. He doesn't sound like the Make America Great Again leader that he once was. He's focusing on things that didn't matter. He's warming up to the Qataris. What's going on, man? Come on. Now, if Trump really, really, really is starting to face the reality that affordability in the country is not a hoax, it's a real problem, and he realizes the fact that he's got 10 months until he gets his ass kicked and that he's going to start getting impeached and maybe even removed if we lose the Senate as well, he now has to work in double time. And one of the things he has to do, if he does not do it, he really doesn't care. And that is he's got to put in mandatory E-Verify. In the clip that I played you, he blamed so much of the problems that are in this country on the illegal aliens that Joe Biden let in. And I agree with him to 80%. The way you get rid of those people is not in this Keystone Cop run around from city to city to city. We're going to do Nashville today, Chicago tomorrow. No, just put in mandatory E-Verify and watch your problems go away. And my concern is that he's going to do it way too late. That's number one. But to Scott Jennings' point, he needs to be the salesperson. He needs to be the champion. He needs the one to be coming out and giving some real stats. He just can't say, the things are so great, people can't even believe it. Everybody's saying how great it is. They can't even believe it. Mr. Trump, I don't hear anybody saying how great things are, that it's so great that they can't believe it. Now, you may say you need more time, but you need to implement things that show that time is going to be on our side. If it's just wait more time on the existing process that you've set up, it's not enough. Tax cuts are not going to be enough. They're just not. You can tax cut me all you want and say, oh, I'm going to save myself an extra $2,000 on taxes. But then when you nail me for an extra $15,000 in healthcare premiums, the $2,000 you gave me is absolutely moot. I got to still come up with the other $13,000. Now, it was beautiful last night. He gave $1,776 to every one of the 1.4 million people currently serving in the military. Nice hit. nice to see. They get it. There are people at the New York Times and others are saying that he's going to need congressional approval to get out that money. So you better wait and see if that really is going to happen. New York Times is always going to try to be a naysayer, but nonetheless, that's something that was nice that was going on. But let's go over some of the things that he said, because Vance Jones, although I can't stand him, he made some very good points. And that's why the Democrats aren't afraid of him anymore, and why I've been saying to you, if I may tap myself on the shoulder here for a second, why I've been saying to you that the Democrats have been quiet. They're quiet. They don't need to say anything. They could just let Trump do the talking because he ain't doing the walking. That's Vance Jones telling you he's no longer in connection with the American people. He has fallen out of connection. Maybe now he's finally getting in, and hopefully it's not too late in the game. But what Trump said is that many different things here that he put out there. Give me a second. He said he stopped inflation completely, which is untrue. All right. First of all, when he came into office, inflation was down to 3%. Okay, now he's got it down to 2.6. But before that wound up happening, there was, it was, if anything, it was starting to tick up again. So it's been in the threes. The other thing we have to watch with this number, this 2.6 number, is a little bit offsetting in the sense that the government was shut down. So there may be factors in that may not make this number as great as it looks. So we got to keep that in mind. It may have to be revised, but nonetheless, it hasn't gone up significantly, but it hasn't dropped significantly either. And it's not completely gone. He says he got rid of it. That's Trump just using his hyperbole. He says that wages are rising much faster than inflation, that specific workers, $1,800 for construction workers, $3,300 in terms of minors, $1,300 overall increases for everybody. He says mortgage costs are down about $3,000 annually on the typical home. He says he attracted $18 trillion in pledged investments, but he's got to remember, though, that money has not come in yet. We haven't felt it. We haven't seen it. And he says that 2026 is poised for an economic boom like nobody's ever seen before. Gasoline, he says, is down. We told you this yesterday. 38 states have gasoline that is down. In some states, it's down below $2. Thanksgiving, he said that turkey was down 33%, eggs down 82%. He says that typical families are saving anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000 on energy costs. That I told you about the mortgage is down about $3,000. So those are some of the things he said. Hotel rates and airfares coming down. The Democrats, they say that that's not the case. I just told you about what they say about inflation. In fact, I'll read it to you verbatim. Democrats and fact checkers say that his information is false about the inflation. That's notwithstanding these numbers that we just came out. While some prices have indeed declined from peaks, overall energy bills, they say, they've gone up 13%. I've got to agree with that. My energy bill is right now more than it was last year. Meat is up by 8.5%, and coffee up by 20%. He says real wages are rising faster than inflation. That's disputed and overstated, say the Democrats. Chuck Schumer says that prices and unemployment are actually increasing. And that is true. Unemployment is increasing. The numbers that just came out yesterday, the day before, show that the number is going in the wrong direction. More people are unemployed. Trump said yesterday that more people are working in America than ever before. Well, our population is also growing. The other thing that I like to see that he said last night was that 100% of new job growth is in the private sector. That the government has been shedding jobs, not hiring people, and also that the majority of new jobs are going to American citizens and not to foreigners, which we like. Chuck Schumer, Democrats say that there is no 33% down on a turkey. It was only about 16%. Eggs, he says, are down 82%. They say that that's false, that it's not that far, that it's a 43% drop. But nonetheless, it's still down, Democrats. Gasoline, they're arguing that $1.99 is not the national average, that the gas has gone down just a few cents. The mortgage going down, they dispute that. They also say that the White House is overstating the amount of $18 trillion pledged, that it's only 9.6, and that the tariff impact is greatly exaggerated. They look at the farmers as being a victim of it. And then, of course, they argue against the hotel rates. But nonetheless, the biggest thing that Trump has to deal with, which is a major problem, is that the subsidies for Obamacare, they're done. There's no coming back on this. Maybe in January, when they come back, maybe they'll do something that will be retroactive. But I can tell you that it is official that my daughter has gone up from $200 to $600 on a premium, and that I've gone up from $3,300 to $4,800 on my premium, and there is no offsetting that. And that is going to be detrimental. I think I said it to you yesterday. I'm going to repeat it again today. If you say to me, Dennis, your gasoline price went down from $3 and now it's $2.50, you're saving 50 cents a gallon. I say to you, great. That means I've got an extra $100 in my pocket every single month. And that would be an exaggeration. I'd be driving everywhere. And then tell me, but the bad news is that you're going to be spending an extra $1,200 a month on your health care insurance. The gasoline savings is nothing. It's nothing. And so the number one cost to most Americans in this country, the number one part of GDP in this country is healthcare. And right now, the Republicans have proven that they have absolutely no plan, no substantial plan to solve the problem that is in front of us. And they waited and they delayed, and there's no way that they could extend these subsidies and say, give us another year on the subsidies, we're going to replace this. So Trump is going to go into November with having people complaining that they're dead broke. Unemployment is going in the wrong direction. So he could get up there and troll the internet all he wants. But ultimately, at the end of the day, he has not done enough to solve this problem. I hope he's turning it around. I'm going to go on the fact that he's finally seeing the problem and hope he's going to turn it around. That being said, listen to me. This is how dangerous it is. Crazy left. Two different things I'm going to give you right now. The first one is AOC. AOC beat J.D. Vance in a poll of 1,500 registered voters, 51 to 49 in a head-to-head for 2028. Here is her reaction. There's no doubt she's running for president in 2028. Play it.
Reaction, or do you think that you could beat J.D. Vance in a head-to-head race for president, as polling suggests, in 2028?
Listen, these polls, like 3 years out, are, they are what they are. But let the record show, I would stomp him.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Yep, there you go. So Trump better recognize the fact that when people like AOC are winning in polls, and I know polls are total BS, but nonetheless, what that poll should show is 60-40, 70-30, and it's not. The last thing I want to show you that's really going to piss you off is that when you look at Nancy Pelosi since 2012 going against the greatest investor in American history, Warren Buffett, play it, Ryan, but it's B-roll. So look at this chart. It shows Nancy Pelosi is in the blue line, and it shows how much better she is actually beating the S&P 500 and how much she is actually beating Warren Buffett. Nancy Pelosi's net worth before Congress was $785,000. She now has a net worth of $133 million. She beat the market by 17,000%. And if that doesn't tell you how corrupt Washington, D.C. is, I don't know what will. That's it for us. Good day today, Ryan. We had a lot of clips. I put a lot on them. Thank you so much for hitting the share button. If you haven't already, please hit the share button now on Facebook, on X. All God's blessings I put out to you today. I put them out to Dan Bongino. I put them out to the president. I put them out to the poor little girl who lost her life in Israel. I put them out to the National Guardsmen who got Allah Akbar screamed in their face. God bless America. We're not out of it yet. Trust me when I tell you there's good people fighting, like you, like me, like Ryan, like all of Team TML. And God bless until I see you tomorrow, God willing. Thanks for tuning in.
Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the DML News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and Team DML.